Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 21st of February, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar index. Dollar still continuing to climb, not a steep trend, just a flat, steady climb on this short-term chart. The medium and long-term, of course, still bearish. No clear upside targets. We will get one off this move up, so that will be interesting. But at the moment, we don't have one. If you're trading the currencies, then the 1%, minute charts will give you a bit more of a heads up. The euro falling away slowly against the dollar, and we've got a target here of 120. So that's where we're headed. And the Japanese yen, we're seeing here the dollar also just improving, and again on the verge of locking this column, which will give us a thrust target on the short-term chart, but still turned to the long and medium-term bearish. So this short-term trend is likely to be fairly short-lived, and we may not, of course, get to the target areas. The sterling chart is just falling away against the dollar. That dollar improvement means sterling weakness against the dollar, and against the euro, we're seeing sterling is actually bullish on the short term, but we have activated this downside target, so sterling still on the bearish side there. Against the Swiss franc, we're seeing that we're down this morning, but still above the cloud on the short-term chart, but medium and long-term still bearish. And against the Australian dollar, sterling actually pulling up quite strongly, implying Australian dollar weakness. Bitcoin holding the $11,000 level, marching up the hill here on this short-term chart. We've got a new upside target of 11,800, which we need to move above 11,160 to activate. So more work to do there, but we are still pushing for these 13,000 area, which is the longer term targets on Bitcoin. The S&P 500 index is looking bullish above the cloud, still just getting above the short-term chart there. And the Nasdaq we're seeing here also up yesterday about 1/3%, so looking bullish there as well. The Dow, of course, with fewer stocks in it, was actually down 2/3% yesterday. So we are just seeing US markets pulling back a little bit. What we need to worry about, of course, is a lower high and then taking out this low, which would give us a lower low. That would be the beginnings of a new bear market. We need to just watch for that. Russell 2000 was down 1/5%, so not a significant move there, and still holding on to its bullish move above the cloud. The S&P 500 future is down very slightly this morning, so no real heads up as to which way the market's going to open. And the Nasdaq E-mini just slightly higher, but again, not enough of a move to give us any indication as to which way the US market will open today. FTSE 100 down about 1/3%, still just struggling in the short term in the doldrums there, and the medium term chart is still bearish as well. And the FTSE 250, although it's improving on this shorter term chart, still has work to do. Xetra DAX, the German market, still just struggling a little bit, down 1/3% this morning, is just getting above the cloud, but not that clearly bullish. And the CAC 40 in Paris just managing to get into bullish territory on the short-term chart, but the medium term is still bearish. The Japanese market was down very slightly, still bearish on the short-term chart. Hang Seng actually was up quite strongly, up 1.8%, so we're seeing a strong improvement here. Not quite bullish yet, but definitely showing support on the cloud there. And the Chinese market, which has actually been pretty bearish with a big dive below the cloud, recovering somewhat, but still not enough to get into bullish territory on the short-term chart. The Indian market up about 1/3%, but just in the doldrums recently, just teetering along on this below the cloud. So India not yet out of the woods either. And the Aussie market actually up, and we're seeing here that we are just finding support on the cloud. Brent crude is looking like it's just turning back into a bearish trend short term. So we're just seeing here testing the cloud, but prices are through. So just looking like that trend is now coming under pressure. And the same with WTI, of course. US natgas sitting at $2.59. Looking pretty weak again, looking like it will come back through the cloud. 256 is the target. What we really have to worry about is activating these big downside targets, but natgas just really struggling. Taking a look at gold, we see gold is down at 1328, so we're back into a bear trend here. We did just nudge this 1360 resistance. We're testing that all the time. When we finally break that, and this is very much like an ascending triangle in the long term, when we finally break that, gold will run. And silver also just turning a bit bearish there as well. US 10-year yields back slightly at 2.88%. We were in the 290s yesterday for a little while. It does look like, though, we are still going to get above this 3% mark. Apple is recovering strongly there. We're seeing here that we are just above the cloud still, and back in the medium-term chart above the cloud. So we are just seeing an improvement there. Amazon up 1.3%. So again, very strong there overnight. Just looking stronger and stronger, actually, almost nudging its a new all-time high. So that's a full recovery there. Google also just in that zone where it's recovering, and Facebook struggling to get back into the 180s, so just sitting in the 170s. A fair amount of negative press at the moment, which is just hanging over the price. Still have a lot of upside targets for Facebook, but we are just seeing it's struggling, and we're getting new downside targets in the short-term charts. And Microsoft looking bullish again, marching up the hill still, so that trend looking very much intact. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.